I was sitting in my country abode recovering from some sort of chaotic life event when boredom began to take a hold of me. I was in need of opioids, but my neurotic mind mistaken it for the need of a succubus. Oh, how there was one drug more addictive and destructive than heroin, giving the user's soul the kind of rot found in the body of a crocodile addict. Ah, yes, the allure of soft skin, pleasant smells, and kind words with a home-cooked meal fool the addict into a false sense of security and safety. This drug is woman. It causes a massive amount of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin all streaming through your blood, breaking the most rational mind to a neurotic lust. And finally, in the terminal stages of the user's addiction, marriage, loss of all material possessions, status, and ego, all too often ending in an empty bottle of Jack and a noose hanging with an upturned chair. How could I be so stupid? Why wouldn't I just look for the sweet latex seeping from a razor-cut poppy? Why, given the choices, would I want such a drug over the simple and far less destructive bag of smack? I must have been hooked. Yes, I was hooked on the succubus, the worst of all, and that is when the addictive behavior began. The addiction-seeking behavior began. I got a message from a Samoan. Through this, Samoan was different. He was not a simple man of simple needs with simple thoughts like the majority of his kind. Something had happened during his evolution. Something was held within his genome. Something from the white man. Something neurotic. He had been gifted with superior thought and intellect to his fellow kind, but for it he had paid for it with every neurotic affliction that burdened the white man. He had gotten his cousin, who had an automobile, to be able to get to me and take me out of my country retreat. As at the time I had no other form of transport other than to stand at the roadside with my thumb, preying on the impulses, boredom, and lonesomeness of the mindless apes who drive their machinery from one point to the next. I was like a feeder fish with a symbiotic relationship with the whale, feeding from their resources while giving them the social contact and maintenance they needed to not slip into a deep neurosis. The Samoan wanted Dexedrine. They wanted amphetamine, go-go juice. They wanted to be up, not down. Slow, not dopey, but most of all they wanted to feel something new. At this point I'd been up for days, drinking, smoking, and taking amphetamines, becoming more and more neurotic and a fool enough to move on to harder drugs like woman. Normally I couldn't get my methadone, my Suboxone for this addiction by seducing. Normally I could get my methadone, my Suboxone for this addiction by seducing young, beautiful Eastern European women on the internet. But having actually had one of these in real life, my addiction had gone too far. I had even tried the purest form of the drug, a pure woman. Nothing could even ever compare to such a rush. I was hopelessly addicted to the pure white china, pure pussy. This led to me hopelessly trying to obtain a fix to kill the cravings, like a heroin addict trying to use codeine to take away his dope sickness, and these cruel Samoans were enabling a helpless addict to go on by offering to drive me anywhere for Dexedrine. I began trying to source my dealer of the pussy. I fired up every dating app on my phone. The ghetto of romance, the unwanted, the untouchable. How could I be so foolish? Even if there was an attractive, pure one, there, it was untouched for a reason. A normal girl of value would not have to resort to such a human trash heap because she could find reasonable courtship in life. She would have to be in a cult or neurotic to explain her resorting to such a place. You see, even sex-addicted nymphs didn't even resort to such a place. They needed a different sort of fix, one with more complexity, fetish sites, chat groups, glory holes. That's where they went. But in this day and age, some evil corporation had found a way to mask the purity of succubuses with filters, and the succubus had learned to take pictures from angles and certain lighting to hide how impure and disgusting they were. I foolishly fell for the bait into the catfish's jaws. When the Samoans arrived at my country abode, they were civil. They remembered all that the white man had taught them, but that would change as the drugs began to take effect. They commented on how nice the place was, how nice my place out here was, and I agreed. It was a place created with the lifetime works of my mother and my childhood neglect, but now I had a refuge, somewhere I could flee and rest my brain and recover my soul, somewhere untouched by the cancer of civilization, or rather the domestication of mankind. We all piled into the automobile, and this was a car of the underclass with no fancy performance, no traction control, and no airbags. This car relied solely on the operator skill. What had I done? I'd given the operating controls to a man whose peoples only came off their jungle islands 100 years before, a wild, cruel Samoan, now pumped full of bourbon and cola and reefer, and soon amphetamine. On the open road, out in the wop-wops, we sped around the snaking corners as the Samoan operated the machine like a luge, free rolling down a hill. Front-wheel drives were not made for such tracks, but who would trust a Samoan in a rear-wheel drive? A derogatory word for the people of the Pacific Islands is coconut, but this is exactly what one of the two Samoans, my friend Devon, was. Maybe it was the fact they gave him the name of a white man, or maybe 100 years ago a drunken European sailor had raped his ancestors, but something led to Devon being like a coconut, white on the inside, brown on the outside. When we arrived in the meth-fueled town, I had arranged to get my subpar fix of pussy. We smoked a joint, and one of the cruel Samoans wanted to defecate on the street like it was India. I told him to resist such an uncivil action, and we smoked some reefer and drank some more bourbon and cola, waiting for my impure, dirty fix of pussy. When it arrived, the catfish, missing teeth, flaps of skin dripping from her body, I felt ashamed. I felt shame wash over my body, regret, self-hate, and worthlessness all coming to my mind from a single sighting of the beast. I couldn't dare to look at the creature again. Lucky the Samoans were equally disgusted and said they had to leave while bursting into laughter. Without words, I followed the Samoans, muttering excuses to why I must escape the beast. No pussy addiction on the face of the earth was worth that. Why? How? How could such a creature even reproduce in the days of internet porn? I'd rather fuck a fleshlight and watch porn than lay eyes on such a beast. Hell, 100 years ago, the cruel Samoans would have mistaken her for a wild boar and killed and eaten her. I paid the Samoans with dextrin, a total loss, a waste of good drugs, to be catfished. I began to loathe my life. For only 6 months before, I'd been in Poland enjoying the pure China of Eastern Europe. I was lost. I couldn't bring myself to go home, even though I'd been awake on speed 48 hours. This night had to have some sort of lesson, some sort of meaning, as the dextrin began to grip the Samoans' minds. Their inner animal instincts began to take a hold, not Devon through. Remember, he was a white man's mind in a brown man's body, pushing every corner with the machine just for a rush, throwing cans of bourbon from the car window like the degenerates we were, fueled by amphetamines. At this point, I made the choice to introduce the Samoans to psytrance, for I had found that such people are unaware of the power of psytrance while on drugs, in particular stimulant drugs. With every peak of the music, the drug-fueled wild Samoan gained more and more speed, knowing at any moment we could swerve off the road and die. To the big city we headed. I needed to get to the city park where Europeans who had come to see our great nature of this forsaken island I now inhabit were. I was not missing Europe, but I was missing Europeans.